So now we can tell which of our guests are universally beloved and which of our guests are not so interesting. Oh, so, but only we know.
Names will be protected. This is a witness protection program here. Welcome to the What's Your Baseline podcast, where we demystify enterprise architecture and business process management.
We're here to bring best practices and lessons learned from our years to your ears, as well as interviewing friends we've met along the way on our professional journeys.
My name is Roland Volt, and I'm joined today by my co-host, JM Erlinson. Hey, JM. What are you working on these days?
What am I working on? My goodness, Roland, What's your baseline? What are you working on these days?
Oh, yeah, no, I can't actually say what it is because my wife will tell that I'm a whiner if I would tell you that. But let's phrase it. It's slow today. I'm doing interesting things like expense reports and selling books, shipping it to Canada. I figured out what Amazon did. So today's a slow day. Tomorrow we go back to regular programming. Yep.
Well, listen, it's a good day to be somebody in process, thinking about a lot of the things that are coming up in our industry. I've been enjoying contending with the introduction of AI. That's been a new challenge. It's the old curse, like, may you live in interesting times. Well, as process people, these are very interesting times, and it's unclear how different market players are going to position themselves in this new world, and how we're going to address and change our practices to meet the evolving technology and expectations from people who work process and process adjacent. How do you predict the future? What do you look to when you're trying to see what's coming next and prepare the offerings you've been building for those needs?
I don't know, to be quite honest. Obviously, there's certain trends, in academia and elsewhere that you have a look at. But it's, I think one of the critical things is people lose the foundational knowledge. Why do we do this? Who's involved? How do you set things up? So if that is the thing that I want to spend my time on and be known for, I would be perfectly fine with that. So, but speaking of which, we're looking a little bit in the future, and I'm super happy that we basically stole a guest from a friendly podcast, which is about 4,000 miles away from me. And I'm happy to introduce Professor Michael Rosemann to our wonderful little chat here, who dials in from the future, from Friday morning when we recorded on a Thursday afternoon. So, Michael, welcome. And how does that work? Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, Roland, JM, lovely meeting you both, and greetings from tomorrow indeed in Australia. And if you paid attention at school, grade 5 or 6, you understand the sun, the earth. So we happen to be truly ahead, at least in terms of time zone. But also with our work at the Center of Future Enterprise, we hope indeed to understand where tomorrow might be.
Yeah, and I hope we will learn a lot from you. What your opinion is, where you think the ship is going on this. But maybe before we get started, would you mind explaining and telling our audience a little bit about yourself? Because everybody knows Brisbane is a big city in Australia, and I even know where it's on the map. So yay me. But still, not everybody might know you. So can you give us a little rundown about, who's Michael Rosemann and what have you done in the past and key experiences and what are you working on? And we'll talk about that. But what are your bucket items from a personal perspective?
Sure. Again, Michael, I live here in Brisbane since nearly 26 years now. Grew up in North Germany in a frugal but very optimistic household. Did a PhD in Germany in the area of information systems, and this happened in the context of a large SAP implementation where at the peak of process modeling and business process reengineering, the organization used a lot of process models. And very quickly we had dozens or hundreds, and my PhD was about how do you manage the complexity of large model landscapes.
And it was that's a really good one. My goodness. Oof. How did you do it? What was your answer?
Well, we developed, we call it guidelines of modeling. Yeah. So in the world of accounting, where you also model organizations, you have accounting principles. They guide the account, and there's a blurry line, you guide the accountant. how to do the accounting. And we adopted that idea into the world of conceptual modeling and developed guidelines of modeling that later also informed the world of share and ARIS. But they were like guideling of economic efficiency, comparability, and so on. And then my appetite was moved from modeling to implementation. I moved in 1999 to Australia, and we did the typical BPM work. We established a Masters of BPM here in Brisbane. We developed a BPM maturity model that organizations like Gartner later populated as well. We did rapid redesign. We worked with SAP on configuring reference models. And we studied processes from emergency departments and severe trauma, where the aim is the patient needs to survive, to Hollywood blockbusters and post-production. And we came across various industries. And I remember one conversation I had with my father who said, "Son, is this the legacy you want to leave? Make companies more efficient."
Mm-hmm.
And that was a wake-up call. And I realized, well, there must be more to process design than taking out time, manual labor,
What?
errors, and cost.
What? There's
And
nothing more interesting than doing your expense reports faster, isn't it?
I know. This is, I mean, I was this week at a conference, and yeah, I think 110 years after Frederick Taylor, most BPM people envisage efficiency as the North Star. But yeah, since 5 or 7 years, our interest is less optimizing the past, but more crafting desirable futures and spend all your energy on getting there as opposed to fixing the past.
I want to just jump in here a little bit because you mentioned you lived in Brisbane, and I actually visited years ago Coolangatta, which was a really nice experience. I don't know if you also like to surf. I went surfing one time where I immediately sank instead of actually staying on top. But I'm hoping that you had a little bit of a better experience. So, do you do that? What else do you do in your personal life beyond the work you put in there?
A significant part of my work is I've got the pleasure and honor of being a representative for my country. I'm an honorary consul, meaning we hand out 1,600 passports each year. We open the Oktoberfest and the film festival. We welcome members of the parliament next week. But we also deal with people in crisis, severely injured, in prison. And so that's one work. But otherwise, I like sports. I like soccer, watching and playing. I like traveling, and I love gardening, and especially I love cooking, from carbonara to beef Wellington and anything in between.
Yeah, let's go to the topic of our conversation, because I found it very, very interesting when I listened to you at another podcast, as I mentioned before. And tell us a little bit about the institutes that you're working in, because I find your mission, if you will, very, very interesting, because I haven't seen that anywhere else, to be quite honest. Typically I see academia looking in the rearview mirror, what's going on in industry, and trying to figure out what makes sense, and then jump a little bit ahead. But I think you're way ahead of the curve.
I'm not sure we're ahead, but when we give lectures to, let's say, first semester students, they said, "Michael, I graduate in 3 years. Prepare me for the world in 3 years." And so I can talk about today, but by the time they join the workforce, the workforce is different. So the Center for Future Enterprise, of which I'm the director, has 25 academics, 40 PhD and master's students, and our subtitle is Navigating Tomorrow's Opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So our obsession is with opportunity points and not with pain points. We don't know any projects where we cut costs or look into compliance. We try to uncover the hidden action possibilities. And our assumption is that the future is rich on opportunities. But our mindset, our tool set, our data set, our skill set is not prepared to those opportunities. And let's say opportunity literacy, futures literacy, is something we try to boost in our research, executive education, and in all our activities.
What's interesting to me, whenever I talk to customers or prospects or just people in the industry, I always say the same thing. Like, you can only cut costs to zero. Like, you cannot make money on cost, but you can make money on growth and addressing opportunities. And yet, when you have conversations with senior leaders in a lot of organizations, it's very difficult to necessarily justify projects because opportunity is often hard to quantify. And so when you look at this and you try to take things from academia to industry, where do you see an easy fit for your message in the halls of executives and in boardrooms?
Yeah. So first of all, you have to understand the other side, and change happens for three reasons. They have to. There's a burning platform,
Yeah.
sense of urgency, and if this exists, I need to move. And sometimes, as you highlighted, cutting costs might be not sufficient. If I take the car industry, if you're an established car manufacturer, you can cut costs. You have a shiny factory. You just might have no cars.
Right.
And so the narrative needs to convert from it's not just a race towards zero; it's a race towards moving out of an entire industry. The second
Right.
one could be curiosity. So we work with leaders who said, I don't know what's possible, but I like to create, let's say, a minimum viable process. I want to do a bit of A/B testing. Let's say we have a bank here, and they try to work out, do customers want to talk to the digital twin of their personal banker? He might be in bed, but there's a digital twin, and we don't know if this is true, but could I provide digital twins, avatars as a proxy? And the third one is ambition, sense of ambition. When leaders really say, I want to get there. I want to go to a certain point, and I'm only satisfied when I'm get there. Brisbane will host the Olympics in 2032. And all of a sudden, we need to scale up. We need to be able to get there. This is not an experiment. This will fail if we don't get there. And so with leaders, you try to understand, are you driven by urgency, curiosity, ambition, or, dare I say, are you big, fat, and happy? And none of these three applies, which we also witness in many industries. And the second item then is we try to make the future as tangible as possible. So the BPM community is really good on capturing a process model and then analyzing what's broken. What we try to do is be as clear around the future and then learn from the future. And in a world that looks so clear, what could you do? And for many individuals, they can envisage the future, but others can't. And you need to be a narrator around this desired future. And that's a piece of work where we do a lot of work.
I'd be really curious about this because I worked in a company, a competitor of the software that we just mentioned. And it was like, okay, we're a 30-year-old company, but we're a startup. We're going to do our damn best to get the best BPM software in the world, And then, quote unquote, reality kicked in. So the PE firm in the background kicked in and said, guys, I think we do something different, And how do you, where do you see the constraints? When you say you have ambitious leaders, you have people who are open to this, and where does, quote unquote, reality kicks in? Have you seen some patterns evolving, or is it all sunshine and rainbows and everybody's happy and you're living the best future you can?
So you, of course, enter organizations that have a certain mindset, yeah? So they're used to a certain way of thinking. And the BPM community is no exception, yeah? We have a heavy bias towards today and the past. Now, what we try to do here is understand that when I fix something in today, I often have a business case. I can say if I cut that cost to my supply chain, here's the return on investment. When I talk about the future, I make a decision often based not on a business case, but on a business model. And that's a very big difference. Yeah. So we work with a financial service provider. It's about extending towards providing marketplaces and a new commission model. And it's a model that they've never used. But all of a sudden, it's not fixing the process, it's expanding the process with an adjacent business model. That means I need to build this additional literacy about revenue design, for example. And most organizations are very good on cost cutting, but they lack literacy on let's say, revenue design. They lack literacy on finding even an opportunity. When I ask people what's broken, they give me 10 answers. When I ask them what's possible, there's silence in the room. And so we try to increase the ease with which you can see these opportunity points.
And when we take a look at that, I want to pivot this into BPM in particular, because I think something we're very familiar with here. Because to me, it seems like there's a lot of what you're talking about as identifying problems can be broken down into structural problems of the organization, can be broken down into process problems, can be broken down into technology problems, a lack of customer awareness or customer experience. Like, these are things that we can usually couch in traditional modeling techniques and tools that we've used for 50, 60 years, right? The question is, how do you use process as a mechanism of capturing and communicating opportunity? Because that's very interesting to me.
Absolutely. So, and as I said, we hardly deal with problems. I give you two examples. The first one is very easy, but very rare. We work with a large retailer here in Australia. They have 900 supermarkets, and they said, I make it simple, we want to sell more bread in our 900 bakeries.
Yeah.
Now what we did is we said, we've got no idea how to sell more bread, but we can help you. And so what we do is we don't ask what's broken. We ask who are the we call them positive deviants, who are the overachievers. When we visited the top 5 bakers, and when you ask them why you're successful, they don't know. Many successful people are unconsciously competent. They don't compare themselves. Then we said, can we spend 2 weeks and do literally time and motion studies, dare I say process mining? We study why are they great. And then we go to average performers, we copy paste the best practice. We did this with an insurance company here in Brisbane. It took them 60 days to handle claims. We took process mining, 40,000 claims, and I asked my team, only study, it takes them 1 or 2 days. Don't worry about the rest. Don't worry about the problems. And then replicate the hidden practices of successful people. We only do root cause analysis of success. We never do root cause analysis of a problem. Open any textbook, they will tell you, do a root cause analysis of a problem. Then you stare at the root cause, you still don't know what to do. We go to retailers, all kind of industries, and this is copy-paste. It's just you let data talk. You need to be obsessed with success and not with failure. And that's the first, what I mean is a mindset and a tool set. Do process mining, but look at the outstanding cases and not the broken cases.
Yeah, I find that really, really interesting. And I think you're not only living in the future, but you're also living in a very future-oriented society. And when I look back where I currently live or where you and I come from, from a cultural perspective, man, we still send us little pieces of paper where we promise each other that we will pay each other, and that is so backwards, right? When you see how it works. Do you think it's an individual attitude? Do you think it's a societal attitude? Do you think it's somewhere in between that led organizations being stuck in the as is?
I think it's a literacy problem. So what I just shared with you is a 10-year-old project. It's not even futuristic. It's just when I've got data, gravitate towards what's possible. Maybe the second point, JM, back to your question and answering your question, Roland. How do I now spot an opportunity, let's say, in a model? So, the 7 types of waste. Lean management, and we nurtured, and we trained analysts, look at over-engineering and motion and transport. It's like a doctor who looks at your X-ray and your blood pressure. And so all these industries are trained to spot a problem. Now imagine I would give you the 7 types of opportunities. We never ask the customer, do you have an idea? We never do brainstorming. We never sit on a beanbag, and we never play music in the background in our work. So what we do is we say, here's 7 types of opportunities. I give you a simple example. Qantas, an airline in Australia, says to you, when you fly, do you have a dog or a cat at home? And if you say yes, I offer pet sitting services via a startup. Now, we try to conceptualize this as what we call first data advantage. With other words, in your process model, look at the starting event and ask yourself, what is it that I see here that might be of interest to someone else? This airline makes a commission every time that startup takes a dog for a walk. I could be an airline making the process more convenient, faster, more online, or I can look at, do I have a first data advantage? Now, we take this concept as one of 7 ideas to any organization. You're a homeware store, you sell paint. I could ask you, do you want a painter with it?
So there are some concerns / I think there's a lot of people who talk about this that looks a little bit like vertical integration, right? Like you're starting to own an end-to-end life cycle of a customer around a topic that would normally have gone through various service organizations and itself presented competitive opportunities at each phase of their journey. What does this do to the competitive landscape? Like, are we looking to subvert competition for the purpose of bringing it all under a single umbrella and offering a continuous customer experience? Or are we trying to identify latent needs that are not being served as part of a service offering that may be one or two steps away? Like, tell me where that interacts.
Yeah, yeah. So this sort of latent need identification, sort of design thinking, we stay away from this, assuming that others are doing this better. The process expansion, people talk about the birth to death value chain.
Right.
That's just one idea. Now, I give you a second idea. Here in Brisbane, there's a company called Domino's Pizza. They deliver pizza.
We got
Now
those here
again,
too.
Yeah, so they're headquartered in Brisbane. And so now they could do nothing else than optimizing their delivery or their baking process. But what they do is they developed a pizza tracker. And now people spend 3 or 4 minutes watching the pizza being baked, being delivered. They can see the music, the playlist of the driver. Now, what they do is process attention, they commercialize attention time. If you wait for an Uber, a little advertisement will pop up. So the first one was process expansion. We call this process attention. And I give you a third example, Uber. When Uber was able to move people from A to B, they had this amazing crowdsourced capability of providing mobility as a service. They could have stopped there and said, we disrupt taxi, but they said, what else can I do with the process? And I could move pizza. In America, they move patients after the discharge from a hospital. Here, Qantas moving passengers. They move potatoes, pets, Pinot Noir. Now, the question of what else can I do with my process is a question that most banks, insurance companies, and manufacturers don't ask themselves.
Yeah.
And this is what we call process generalization. So expansion, attention, generalization are 3 of 7 concepts that we use as prompts, either in a workshop or we have a whole tool around it now that prompts you to think about an opportunity that you otherwise would have not considered.
I want to get a sense of what it feels like in the room to have these kinds of conversations because, I mean, turning it back to our audience, I can imagine that these aren't conversations you have often. Even if you're in a senior leadership role, maybe this isn't something you've had a chance to dig into because often your mandate is going to be focused on cutting costs, cutting headcount, like being able to tighten up processes, eliminate waste. And so do you capture and identify best practices? And if you do, like, what does that weigh against your bad practices you're trying to eliminate? And when you look backwards, does this actually help you build more forwards, or does it help you just get a little bit leaner on how you operate? Does it help you achieve your KPIs?
So first of all, we don't talk about becoming leaner. We never use the term best practice. We try to work out, we have this sort of pyramid. We say these are sort of average practices, ordinary best practices. And then we talk about this lot size 1, where you're the only one who runs this business process.
That's a great one. Lot size of 1. We are the only ones.
I give you an example. In my own world, we are working on the idea of upgradable degrees, where you get a bachelor and then we sell a bachelor like a piece of software. It doesn't exist in the entire world. Now imagine you are the first university that has a process that never stops. I offer educational well-being as a service. Now, our interest is, how do I spot these processes where I'm not catching up with the average, the best practice that is embedded in common ERP solutions? I'm ahead of best practices, where I come up with ideas that no matter how great my design thinking and customer journey mapping is, my customers would never come up with. So companies initially fixed their own problems, then they did design thinking and they fixed customer problems. But what we learned is anyone can grab any customer quote from the street, and it's hard to compete on design thinking. We try to work out how can I think beyond 0, what you talked about, and beyond what the customer can see. Now, we are not adding to the main conversation. We're not sitting, the whole world talks about it and let's add our thoughts. We want to kick a new conversation. We kick off a new conversation. This is not about adding to the mainstream conversation. We want to kick off a conversation to increase your opportunity appetite, to make your revenue resilient, to compete on trust, and to boost the emotional performance of your process.
I do have so many questions, Michael, now, but I know that our audience might have some spinning gears that need some oiling in between. So let's take a little break to decompress, but I definitely want to come back to this point, because I would assume you've written books about this, and the process or the approach is nicely mapped out. And obviously, I'd be very curious to read about this. But let's take a little break, couple of seconds, and we see each other in the second segment of this show, where we're going to dive a little bit deeper. And I know you already have a little prototype preview coming, so I'm very curious to learn about that as well.
Hey, happy day, I need your love, won't let you down. Hey, happy day, I need your love, won't let you down. Love won't let you down, won't let you down. Yeah, hey, happy day, I need your love.
Yeah, welcome back. Michael, this is a very interesting conversation because, as I said in the first part, I see a lot of organizations, as you mentioned too, looking backwards, right? I don't see enough people looking forward, right? And that might be because they don't know what to look for. So I like your idea of the 7 types of opportunity, instead of the 7 types of waste. Could you elaborate a little bit about this? Because at least I'm super curious about that. I'm pretty sure you've written 25 books about this by now, or your students have. But learning about this concept and what's in it, because I think this is something that could take us as a discipline quite a big step forward.
Yeah. So in the world of management, there's a concept called the ambidextrous organization, where they talk about organizations exploit and explore. Now, exploitative process management is what we've done for a long time. Yeah? Capture what's going on and incrementally improve. Explorative BPM really means explore the new opportunities. So we don't have a rich body of knowledge. And then, so even when organizations are curious, they might do a brainstorm, but it depends very much on the mood and whoever I have in the room, and it's not reliable. It's so completely different to all the systematic data-driven structure we have in textbook BPM. And so if the BPM community reacts well to structure and systemic thinking, that's what we try to expand. And we complement this, like we have an opportunity appetite statement. So most organizations have a risk appetite statement. They said what they try to avoid. And we have an active opportunity appetite statement to tease out your true opportunity appetite to, let's say, explore and enter a new business model.
Yeah. So my question here on that is that you've got you walk into a boardroom or into an executive meeting full of stakeholders, and obviously in that conversation you're navigating both a business conversation and a social conversation.
Yep.
And it feels like risks in that moment are almost a safer bet to identify than opportunities. It's easier to tell somebody what you fear than what you hope. Hope is a very personal thing. And how do you have a conversation about aligning each other on an ambition rather than aligning each other on protecting the organization?
I learned this from studying the space agency NASA. And if you Google Aurum, they said for a long time they had a risk appetite statement, but if you look at your risk, you probably wouldn't leave your house. Yeah. And I realized if I make the opportunity and the value of the opportunity a bit more tangible, the risk might not change, but your willingness to mitigate and fight against this risk is increasing. I give you more or less a carrot, but without that carrot, you're too constrained by the risk. And this is why at the space agency NASA, every step they take is considered from an opportunity and a risk lens. Very few companies in the entire world today have an opportunity appetite statement.
Yeah, but by definition, you're breaking ground. It's like Starship Enterprise, to 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds and all that type of stuff. And I think people just don't know, right? So what should they do?
If you would Google opportunity appetite statement, you might find a company called Urban Utilities, the local water company in Brisbane. We now go from conquering Mars to providing water and taking care of sewage. They have a chief opportunity officer, someone whose only job is to look outside the window, study the quality and cost of floatable IoT devices, so we, ambition, can spot leakage before you can. Their business process has an ambition called the process becomes obsolete that customers can report leakage. Now, most business processes and process models don't have a vision. BPMN doesn't even have an objective as a
Yeah, not
symbol.
by default.
Now, as you said, first, very tangible operational advice. If we go from boardroom to the BPM room, for every process, have a carrot. Work out where you would like to be. And that needs to be an ambitious stretch target that is exciting. Where people join and said, I can't wait to get there. Jamison Trauma Institute, they look after severe trauma. They created a 6-minute video that captures the trauma process, severe car accident, to you become a taxpayer again in the year 2033. Car accident, drones are arriving, predict the kind of injury, biomanufacturing starts to print your bones, and so on. And then they socialized this video to the inside and the outside and said, our shared desired future looks like this. Welcome on board. And all the energy goes to how do I get there and not how do I optimize the tour of a local paramedic. We do this anyway.
Yeah.
But that won't change your life. Now, most companies don't have 6-minute videos for the year 2033 of their business processes.
Yeah.
But they could.
And I like that a lot. I used to be an evangelist, chief evangelist. And that was the first thing I always said. Like, you start by socializing a vision that is ambitious and appetizing internally. So you start your employees talking about it and developing a pride, an excitement for the capabilities you're developing that tangibly support their customers' needs and future needs as the company expands what they're capable of doing. And that does cover like a lot of those opportunity categories you talked about. I love that. That's the kind of thing that sticks people in the organization, that earns loyalty and buy-in and keeps the longevity of an employee's tenure without having to influence them with other forms of currency, like just cold hard cash. My question here is that when you're looking at these ambitious statements, where does this interact with forward-looking statements for an organization, their position in the marketplace or on various financial listings? Like, where does this interact with analyst reports or in their positioning in customer quadrants? Like, what does this do for them?
It depends on what story you tell your investors. When Jeff Bezos retired, he says, I'm happy to retire because we are more innovative than ever. He didn't say, I can retire because our supply chain is more efficient than ever. He said, we have this momentum where we continuously shape the future. And if I invest my money, I mean, look at the highest valued companies. They're not because of their current amazing processes. It's the prospect that they offer for the future. But futures literacy, the ability to imagine, design, use the future, is severely underdeveloped in general and within BPM. And then so, hey, if I want to spend my money, I'm spending my money on the next years. When I got hired as a professor, my vice chancellor just asked me one question. What do I get from you in the next 5 years? I can read your CV. I don't have to talk about your past. I hire you, and what's the return on investment on the next 5 years? Well, ask the same question your process analyst.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear it's a cultural thing. This is what I appreciate when I went to America. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past; it's what you're contributing today. And I find this really refreshing. That attitude. Sometimes it's hard, right? But I think that's something where other countries, and I don't want to diss my fatherland too much, where other countries can take a look at and say, hey, we might need to wake up and looking forward to it. How does one get to this? Because when I look into organizations, at least the clients I've worked with, they were more on that backward-looking, safe side of things. Oh yeah, I buy your tool and then I import APQC and then I manage my processes, whatever, right? So they have some low ambition objective, if they have an objective at all. I've seen those customers as well. How do you change that? How do you get people excited for the opportunity, for the thing that, to be quite frankly, you're currently selling in this podcast here? Because I think I've bought in, but how do people buy into the different attitude? Because they might go back to work on Monday and the boss says, yeah, nice idea, shut up, go robot.
So someone said, I think only 1% of all people are ambidextrous. Yeah, they can exploit and explore at the same time. And I think it's very, very, very rare that someone who spent 20 years on optimizing the past all of a sudden says, hey, I'm happy to craft a video for the year 2033. In the recent HBR, Harvard Business Review, there's an exit interview with the CEO of Walmart. And he said, for the last 12 years, I more or less made Walmart very efficient. It's time now to capitalize on contextualization and hyper-personalization, precision shopping. I might not be the right person for this, and he hands over to his successor. And so say maybe the insurance company that we work with, where one CEO said, one claim engine and standardization is my mantra. The next one walks up, thanks for that work. I now try to cross-sell and say, behind every mortgage is a homeowner. What else do they need?
Yeah.
And so sometimes you see people change, and those who are good in analyzing what they find on a piece of paper are not the same guys who are good on staring at an empty piece of paper and designing something from scratch. And so I think you can only use so much surgery with existing workforce, and maybe you need to embed a few more designers and maybe less analysts in your BPM team.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that in real time with, for some people's favorite company, with Apple, when they had Steve Jobs being that forward-looking visionary type of guy, and then having Tim Cook there, who's obviously a supply chain guy, more on this, how do we get this thing done the most effective way? And obviously it pays off for everyone involved there. I'm curious how their new CEO, when he joins, well, when he starts his new gig, he's obviously there for many, many years. Right. When he starts his new gig, will the DNA of the company change? Because I think that might be the thing that I see in the BPM market, not only the tool manufacturers, but all the people who are involved in the discipline, where you might need that injection, to change the perspective.
No, you can only have so many CEO changes, and this is why in our current work together with Signavio, we said if the human cannot see what's possible, maybe the tool can. And this idea of augmented design, and while everybody talks about AI in the process, the procurement agent, finance agent, the chatbot, we look into AI on the process. So can AI be a thinking partner, augmented process design? And what we did is more or less, we said you can upload a process model or a text, and we activate our 7 types of opportunities. And say, what about, let's say, you're an insurance company, we have a totally AI-enabled low-cost process variant for price-sensitive customers. Or we have a high-touch, we call the new organic, human-only process for premium. In the old days, we would eliminate variants. We now add variants. And then it's up to you to highlight, is it feasible, desired, viable, responsible? And then you can inquire and have a conversation with that opportunity. Who else is doing this? Give me an example, and so on. And so we said the tool now will prompt ideas. It's like reverse prompting. You might open your tool, the tool will say, hey, good morning, JM and Roland, I've got an idea for you. It's not human sees a problem, tool sees an opportunity. It's reverse prompted.
How much of what you're talking about can actually be AI enabled / should be an AI conversation? Obviously, like talking to you and talking to your team and talking to your students and going through your process, particularly if it's like a consultative, facilitated session, feels like a very good experience. But if you're looking to scale this, obviously like a worldwide scaling, either you need to have a massively scaled team, or you're looking to technology enable this. In particular, right now, it's an AI conversation. First and foremost, can this be done through that? And secondly, what is lost or gained if you have AI as that sort of conversation partner for opportunity identification, and then ultimately, sort of tracking down, hunting that opportunity to find a solution that would allow you to satisfy it.
Exactly. Like first of all, yes, the tool I described exists. Yes, it's a solid prototype, and we do 3 things. We trigger 7 types of revenue opportunities. We have 7 types of triggering increased emotional performance, not transactional, but emotional performance. I'd say front-loading effect, anticipating effect, and so on. And third one is we have types of what we call TX, trust experience design. Let's say I'm Netflix, you don't watch my shows, and after 3 months, I'm pausing the invoice. I'm an insurer, and I proactively avoid overinsurance, and I'm a telco that proactively downgrades you if you underutilize your data plan. But these are all prompts to compete on trust. And so we call it RX, revenue design, EX, emotional experience, and then TX, trust experience.
I like that a lot. Trust experience as like knowing that you're not going to maximize your revenue by exploiting your existing customers, but knowing that using your existing customers as mouthpieces through reputation leads to a larger customer share and
Correct.
ultimately more revenue. That's fascinating. I like that a
We just
lot.
we call it transactional benevolence. Yeah, we just published a paper on this idea of benevolence. Where in that
Transactional
moment of
benevolence. Oh wow, that's
it's
a good
transactional
word.
because it's embedded in the system. It's not I feel sorry for you. It scales up.
Yeah.
Amazon asks you if you buy the same book again. Are you sure?
Mm.
Mhm.
The German homeware store Hornbach will say if you buy an item that the next day will be discounted, you get that price difference back on your account, even if you don't know about it. And these are all little process principles that are not about faster, shorter, cheaper. They're about, I want to compete on trust. My MBA students now go into job interviews and said, I want to become a leading trust designer. And they start the conversation by having a job profile before it's even in demand.
Yeah, like what are you talking about? Yeah.
The tool triggers these conversations, JM, and then someone has to pick up these pieces. Yeah, so you can interrogate, but at some point you will be out of your comfort zone because you never competed on trust. You're an insurance company and you never made emotional performance a KPI, or you never had an adjacent business model. And this is again where you need implementation partners, but there might not be your textbook business process analysts and modelers.
Mm-hmm. So actually I have a question
Yeah.
along these lines, because I keep circling back to the same thing, is convincing people, right? Like you're talking to a very senior leader in an organization, and what you say is that here is an opportunity to compete on trust. And they say, in the short term, we can see this being a loss of revenue. Netflix canceling your subscription after 3 months. They could have milked you for the rest of the 9 months of the year. And they say, well, for this financial year, we can see this costing us X amount, X percentage. And you say, but ultimately your trust, your brand that's your value, right? So the trust that you have, we see that as an opportunity. And I think you see that too. Where is that balance in the conversation to make the case for a trust focused go forward rather than short-term gains go forward, particularly when we know that a lot of executives have short tenures at companies?
So you have to shift the conversation from cost to opportunity cost.
Oh, okay.
The cost of not taking an action. So we work with an insurance company. I said product is the same, price is the same, quality of call center is the same. It's cutthroat, and every year my customer will go, 10% of my customers go to high churn to another insurance company, and we pick up customers from somewhere else. This is brutal business. Now imagine I'm the first one that avoids overinsurance. Proactively avoids overinsurance in a data-rich, contextual data sense. I would forever be competitive. Imagine your telco would say, hey, JM, the last 6 months, you underutilized the data plan. We reimburse you $100. Enjoy your day. You would over dinner talk about your telco. The word of mouth, the loyalty, the NPS. And so we need leaders who think about the immediacy. And I guess the closer we come to zero, the closer I can't squeeze anything else, the more we will move from simplification to sophistication. And for me, sophistication is the new process ambition when you run out of steam with simplifying a process.
I find this really interesting because there's obviously, I'm pretty sure you've heard about a book called Enshittification. It was written by Corey Doctorow from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, where he describes how value gets pushed, from the start, like Uber, cheaper alternative, more convenient, where then they go and have their business people, right? Their business partners doing this. And at some point in time, they squeeze those guys as well, make it intentionally worse and to capture the value for themselves. So if you think about that, it's like a death spiral, right? Because at some point in time, you're the only game in town, and people might be fed up with that, right? And say, no, I don't want to deal with Jeffrey's bookstore or whomever, right? And I think there needs to be a way out for organizations, and I like that attitude that you described very much.
There's a simple tool called the futures triangle, and the 3 quarters are the weight of the past. We've never done this. There's the distraction of the present, a flooding, a new election, whatever, and there's a pull of the future. And most companies don't have a pull of the future. Yeah, they have a weight of the past, traditions, habits, dogma, and they're distracted by whatever happens today. And what we said is you need to counterbalance by a pull of the future. And without a pull of the future, it's only the past and the present. And you cannot compete on being pulled by a desired future you see before anybody else.
The question is, where can people see, you mentioned you have that prototype with Signavio, where can people learn more about that? Because I found it very interesting. I see the point. I opened all when they said, oh, Google this. I opened it in tabs, so I don't forget. But it's where can people learn more about that? Where can they see the prototype? Is that already released, or is it in a
Not
beta
released,
stage?
but I invite anyone who's curious to contact us because right now, let's say for the next months, we like to pilot further in terms of the content, the whole user experience, so that before we launch it, it's really a tool that is solidly tested. So in the first instance, I encourage everyone, feel free to contact us, but very, very soon, how this is a tool that is broadly available. And some of the concepts I described, they're published as articles as well that I'm happy to socialize.
So actually, I have a little bit more of a question about this. I mean, practically, I'm also like personally interested in this. What you do is fascinating. What does the organization you've built around this look like? Like, how do people interact with you? Are they hiring your people to come in and facilitate with them? Are they coming in and getting advice as a company from the organization? How do people transact with you, and what sort of models of services do you offer?
Yep. So the prototype we developed is a solution developed by SAP Signavio. So they are your first point of contact for the tool. We are researchers. We're not consultants. We're not driven by billable days. We are driven by finding some wicked problems, or let's say wicked opportunities. And so this is the bank that tries to work out, let's say, what can I do with geofenced money? The insurer who says, how do I actually avoid over insurance? The university who tries to work out, what do I do post provision of a degree? And so we're interested in companies that have fascinating design opportunities. And then we want to socialize this, yeah? So the students that we educate have developed careers around becoming implementation partners for opportunity engagements. But yeah, our engagement model is typically, we often start with either the local BPM team and boost their ambition, or we do like a session at a strategic retreat as a boardroom meeting to boost their sense of ambition and their ultimate opportunity appetite, to at least kick off a bit of a pilot study, what it means to proactively understand, explore, and avoid opportunity cost.
That's really cool. And I think that's something that's a sort of call to action to the people on the line here who have been watching this whole time. We're going to take a brief break. So, Michael, I'm going to take us into a second break of our episode, because we're going to come back after that break and talk about conclusions and sort of next steps if you're interested. But I want to turn it back to you. Like, have you had these sort of conversations before? Have you interacted with academic partners who are working on this, or implementation partners who are focused on opportunity? And if you haven't, where has your ambition come from? Is it founder-led? Is it executive-led? Is it nothing? And as a result, how have you seen your organization perform in the industry, struggle or succeed to achieve its at least targets or goals, or to reach its customers in the right way? We'll leave you for a brief moment and come back with our final thoughts and conclusions for the episode.
And welcome back. Michael, I think we could talk for another hour or two. Sign me up. I said it in the break. If I was 30, 35 years younger, we would have the conversation how I moved to Brisbane to become one of your students. But I guess that train has left the station. But I'm looking forward to getting all the little pointers that you will share, which I'm happily put in the show notes, by the way. And I have a couple of Google tabs open that will go in there anyways. But I think the question that's on everybody's mind is now, at least for the guys who made it up to here, is how do I get in contact with Michael? That's so interesting. I want to learn more. So what is the best way to reach out to you and start a conversation, either as an individual or as an organization? Because I think they're stuck in their backwards looking phase.
So as I said, I'm the director of the Center for Future Enterprise at the Queensland University of Technology. So you can find anything about our work, what we do in that area, where you can contact us. And we are global citizens. We want to contribute and shape the global debate. That means we do work around the world. I've been in, I think, 30 different countries with engagements. So the fact that we're in Australia is not a constraint. We will also be present at the International BPM Conference in Toronto, and for most of the second half of this year, I will be based in Münster, North Germany, as part of a sabbatical. But if you want to get in touch with us, we're happy to have any online conversations with anyone to talk about the things we are doing right now. I want to leave a legacy as being able to inspire people, and we get a kick out of inspirations more than out of billable days. And anyone who's interested to have any sort of conversation about the individual career, how you might become a chief opportunity officer or a trust designer, a revenue designer, reach out. But also, if you're an organization with a bit of curiosity and appetite for this sort of work, by all means, reach out, and more than happy, whether it's online or face-to-face at your premises, to work with you. And finally, anyone who wants to build capability, the 35-year-old younger Roland, come to us. What I talked about is what we offer our degrees, undergraduate, postgraduate, MBA, executive MBA, all the way to a PhD.
And I will put all that stuff in the show notes. So hopefully nobody's driving and try to take notes with all that stuff. So just go to the show notes and it will be there.
Well, Michael, I'll certainly be reaching out and having a longer conversation, and hopefully everyone else will be. And not just to Michael, but I can pivot a little bit to us as well here at What's Your Baseline. This was a fantastic conversation, Michael. I really genuinely enjoyed it. I hope all of you out there did too. And if you did, make sure that you share this episode with your friends. This is a great one to socialize around, not just to people in BPM, but to a larger business community, to a larger community of people who are interested in what it means to look for opportunities. I think this applies at a larger context than just even a corporate context. So get in touch with us as well if you want to know more things. hello@whatsyourbaseline.com, whatsyourbaseline.com. / episode 116 for this specific one and the show notes that Roland was talking about. And please like, subscribe, share, join us on Patreon or on Substack for lots more thought leadership articles and a great community to interact with. But until we see each other again, friends, I've been J.M. Erlinson.
I'm Michael Rosemann. Thank you so much.
And my name is Roland Wold.
And we will see you in the next one.